Welcome back to Truck Nut Radio. I am your host, Earl Azader, and we have returned with our guest, liberal cuck soy boy, Matt Anderson from the podcast Mighty Peculiar. And what we are doing is we were discussing the COVID-19 virus. Now, those of us with any freaking common sense know that this was created in the Wu-Tang Clan lab in China to eliminate the presidency of your Lord and Savior, Donald J. Trump, as well as bring about the apocalypse and the plagues that were predicted in the book of Exodus, and that's there in the Bible. So this softy snowflake came on the air and tried to contradict what I was saying, but we had to quickly go to our sponsor to shut up his cake hole. But now we're back, and what was it that you were saying, Mr. Anderson?
So you're right, and I'm sorry that I'm contradicting you, but I will extend an olive branch and say at least we can agree, because you just said it, we do agree that the COVID-19 virus was very dangerous and very serious, and we needed to take steps to mitigate the risk. We do agree on that.
We needed to take steps to negate what?
Did you wear a mask?
No.
And why not?
Because no point, like I mentioned earlier, is no different than common cold.
Okay, what you mentioned earlier was that it was a deadly virus.
To the economy, deadly maybe.
Deadly to people.
Allegedly, and not all people. The Hava Nagila people weren't affected, according to your own Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Do you need a citation?
I have a wager for you.
A wager?
A wager, a bet.
Oh,
you want to earn the money?
I love money.
Okay. All right. So $1,000 US.
Yes, please.
If you will put on an N95 mask and try to blow out a candle.
On camera and blow out a candle.
Yep.
Hold on a minute. Now, you just want me to blow out a candle wearing an N95 mask. Hold on a minute.
Wearing it properly.
Levi Jean, can you get me my liberal condom? Here we go.
Okay. You know, I'm glad that you actually had that. I
had one because it's my kink.
Right.
I don't think you should laugh at me because that's why he won. But go ahead.
No, but I'm just
you want me to light up a candle?
It looks good on you.
I will get. This is a candle that I did not in any way buy at a Bed Bath and Beyond. All right, there, glutens. Here I go.
All right, $1,000 on the line.
Blow out this candle
while wearing
with
the
this here
N95
mask on, with my liberal panties on my face. Here I go.
Okay.
Is this some kind of witchcraft that you're doing over there?
No, it's science.
I'm blowing as hard as I goddamn can.
You know. All right, so we're going to be here a while, so we might as well do something entertaining and just watch and listen to The Mighty Peculiar.
This is downright satanic.
Mighty Peculiar. Peculiar.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Mighty Peculiar. I am your host, Matt Anderson, and I'm also not Matt Anderson, and I'm here, as always, with Denver Riggleman, the most successful former congressman of all time, and also the least successful former congressman of all time. And what are we talking about today, Denver?
Well, goodness, Matt, it's good to see you this morning. What we're going to talk about are the seekers, which sort of like Congress, are riding the comet of cognitive dissonance.
That's right. Yes, this episode is all about cognitive dissonance and the weirdest, dumbest cult you've ever heard about.
Yeah, I guess we're not talking about Congress, or maybe we are.
Well, yeah, it could be both. But as always, before we get into that, please remember to like this episode, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, Because if you don't do that, we're going to totally tell the Guardians not to come pick you up, and you're going to get stuck in the catastrophic flood that's going to wipe out the Earth. And that's going to suck for you. So,
hey, welcome to the Mighty Peculiar.
Yes, it's we like to threaten the audience here. I guess I should also say we have an email address. We don't talk about that much, but it's themightypeculiar@gmail.com. So you can email comments. You can flirt with Doug because he'll probably be the one to read it. You can also suggest topics, anything like that. So themightypeculiar@gmail.com. Now, let's just get down to business here. And I'm going to again apologize to my state of Illinois. I'm trying to not make us famous for sending over 50% of our governors to jail. I'm going to now make it famous for being weird. Because this story takes place in Oak Park, Illinois, which is not far from where I live. We are in 1954. And there is a character, there's a guy named Dr. Charles, and I'm saying it Laughhead. I don't care how it's really pronounced. It's Laughhead. It's probably pronounced like Logan or
Lawhead or
It's Laughhead. He's Dr. Laughhead. He's a staff physician at Michigan State. He
sounds impressive.
Yeah, he hangs out and gets together with a 54-year-old housewife named Dorothy Martin. She's in the Oak Park suburb of Chicago. Dr. Laughhead gives an interview to the Chicago Tribune. The headline on the third page, because it was not the front page news. Doctor warns of disasters in world Tuesday. So
okay.
What he's referring to is what he claims is going to happen on December 21st, 1954. And I'm going to just read, this is a direct quote that he gave to the Chicago Tribune and that they printed. There will be a tidal wave of volcanic action and a rise in the ground extending from Hudson's Bay in Canada to the Gulf of Mexico, which will seriously affect the center of the United States. There will be much loss of life, practically all of it, in 1955. It is an actual fact that the world is a mess, but the supreme being is going to clean house by sinking all of the land masses as we know them now and raising the land masses now under the sea. So what's up here is going to go down and what's down is going to come up. That was in the Chicago Tribune.
And he said, he mentioned supreme being, Matt?
Supreme being, yes.
So are we talking about the same kind of, and this is what I love about the show, and I think when people watch this is that I know a little bit about a little bit and a lot about a lot, but Matt always is going to surprise me with something. So I'm a little worried about this because it automatically seems like we're going back into sort of the cults, the religious cults about end of days.
Yep.
So, as far as supreme being, are we talking about Dr. Laughhead also being one of these individuals who believes he has a direct line to God or to Jesus as a seeker?
Funny that you, it's funny that you ask that because he doesn't. But Dorothy does. Dorothy Martin, the 54-year-old housewife that he's teamed up with. Now, this is why I find this interesting because, okay, effectively they believe that Earth is doomed and that UFO flying saucers are going to come and save the true believers and take them away, right? So that's the basics.
Okay. So
okay, go ahead.
Is a supreme being then God, and the aliens are part of the transportation that they need to get there? Is the supreme being something else?
Right. So that they don't seem to reconcile that because Dorothy, she gets all of her information that she's passing on to Laughhead through automatic writing, which I think we've actually mentioned before, but it's basically channeling, it's and this is what I think is interesting because we're in this period of time where UFOs are still kind of linked to spiritualism, like the old like seances and stuff like that. Like they haven't gone full like sci-fi hard like technology. There's it's a weird middle ground that we're
It
in.
really is, because 54, thinking about our past conversations, Roswell in 47, we're talking about the CIA report comes after that, right?
Yep.
What was 1957?
Right.
We're also talking about 1952, remember our three,
Yep.
projects that we talked about, right? What was it? Project Saucer, Project Grudge, right? The then Blue Book.
Yep.
Right. So, and now it's really interesting in 54, we have this, you're talking about a supreme being, and you're talking about these prophetic cults or these prophetic individuals who seem to have a hodgepodge of direct electrons going into their frontal lobe from some kind of different types of beings.
Right. And so while Laughhead refers to a supreme being, what they end up kind of coalescing around as a group called a cult called the Seekers, sometimes also called the Brotherhood of the Seven Rays. That gets into a whole other thing about the theosophy and stuff. That can be kind of shunted aside for another episode because that's the whole thing. So for all intents and purposes, there's the the Brotherhood of the Seven Rays, and they are an offshoot called the Seekers. They are the most suburban doomsday cult you'll ever meet. They, while sitting around and discussing like the catastrophic destruction of Earth, they were knitting, singing songs, and baking.
So, Matt, it sounds to me, and I know that we're talking about cognitive dissonance, where that comes from. It's incredible episode. I think maybe, even though we're not talking about RFK Jr. or Marjorie Taylor Greene, I believe these type of episodes are the ones that really get to me because of the evolution of what we see today.
Yes.
And the same kind of belief systems. But I find it interesting you talk about a suburban cult, right? I'm thinking about all the sort of suburban things we have today, like Moms for Liberty, right?
Yes.
There's just so many other things that feels like it's knitting, and it's either mothers or it's even, obviously men too.
You're right.
But it seems like it's a bottom up based on charismatic leaders or a belief system. But my question for you is this: do you find this to be a precursor to Heaven's Gate, Marshall Applewhite and Doe? Do you find it as, because it just seems like an iteration that goes to, committing suicide with the same tennis shoes on.
Right.
And today talking about cosmic belief systems, where we even have a congressman talking about UFOs being in the Bible. So I'm having a really interesting time here as we're going forward that, they're almost talking about a cosmic Jesus.
They are.
And it's a really interesting thing to me as we're going forward. Sorry, it's just so fascinating when you bring up these, these interesting parallels, like the Seekers.
Yeah, well, let me touch upon that idea of, are they kind of a precursor to Heaven's Gate? And in a lot of ways they are, and in a lot of ways they are the super tame, boring suburban version. So like, if Heaven's Gate is like the big bad city, it's like Chicago or New York, the Seekers are the safe suburb version of a doomsday cult, which is a weird thing to say, maybe almost cognitively dissonant. I don't know. One of the things they had to do, and their membership at its peak was 30. They were 30 strong. In order to be rescued by who they called the Guardians. Now, again, Laughhead says a supreme being, so that must be the person directing the Guardians to come in their fleet of ships, or maybe just one, because it's
Matt. I just made a connection, and I know we do this. Do you know the Guardians, the Guardian Alliance, written by, was it Ashiana Deanne, right? I believe is the name that they used, was the Voyagers. Part of the Guardian Alliance is the Queventilur, which is the mystical Bigfoot. So it's interesting to me that you're talking about the Guardians in 1954. I think the Voyagers was written after that.
Yeah.
The Guardian Alliance, which is, a lot of people believe in the mystic, this 200 million plus year war between 12-strand DNA beings who want our Earth. And that
it only makes sense.
Coming through the harmonic universes. But sorry, man, I know a lot about that.
No,
and the fact that you said Guardians absolutely blew my mind. And again,
well, and that's what I do, and as I hope the audience has started to gather, when we do the episodes like this, like I am structuring it to find ways to trigger Denver. I'm trying to build it in enough triggers that are going to be like, what? Oh, I can't believe this. So the Guardians were supposed to come swoop up everyone to safety, taking them to the planet Clarion. Okay, so the Guardians come from Clarion. Now, so that basically sounds a lot like Heaven's Gate, just minus the whole suicide part. You know,
yes.
The not insignificant part. But where they also share a commonality is you could only guarantee that you would be swooped up by the Guardians if you were a true believer. And in a quote that I have, that this quote actually just kind of blew me away. So okay. This is also given to that same Chicago Tribune article. So it's December 17th, 1954. According to their calculations and Dorothy's, channelings, December 21st, so 4 days from then, is the day. It's the rapture for these people, right? So on the 17th, this one member is saying, I have to believe the flood is coming on the 21st because I've spent nearly all my money. I quit my job. I quit school. And my apartment cost me $100 a month. I have to believe. You talk about triggering or talk about, putting me on sort of a path. So I appreciate this. And this might not be RFK Jr. or Marjorie Taylor Greene or some of the crazier things we've discussed on individuals. But when you talk about somebody who says they've spent all our money, that they have to believe, now you're getting to the root of it, aren't you, Matt? The absolute inability of somebody to get out of a belief system based on what they've already put into it. Yes. And now you're starting to roll into that cognitive dissonance, or you're starting to roll into things where it's so nonsensical. I think that they still continue to have to believe, where faith and fantasy actually start to merge. Right.
And I just, again, the money part of this, Matt, the money part of this affects me so much. And I think because when you're talking about grifters and you're talking about, narcissists, or you're talking about crazy not being stupid, right? That individual might believe this, Dr. Laughhead, but he's mining the ignorant and mining believers for a specific type of lifestyle, based on either belief system he wholly invests in, or he's absolutely cynical, a narcissist, or some kind of sociopath.
So you know what? To jump in right there, the interesting thing here, and I don't know if it's just because of the kind of relative smaller size of the group, but in all of the research I've done, neither Laughhead or Dorothy seem to be like gathering the money of the followers. So in this case, like I think those two were true believers. So the 21st happens, right?
Right.
30 members strong go out to Dorothy's front yard singing Christmas carols, because it's December 21st.
Right.
And waiting for the ships to come. Well, they don't. Big surprise, spoiler alert, sorry, they don't come.
I would say it's sort of going to be like the proof from the UAP whistleblower, but go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a little nervousness. There's, talk of, well, maybe there was some mistranslation, through the automatic writing. Maybe we did our math wrong. Okay. So they do it again. The next night, the 22nd, everyone's out there.
Tough.
More convinced that's going to happen. It doesn't.
That's tough.
You know what's funny? December 23rd rolls around and they're all out there again. All 30. They've not lost one member. Okay. And most of them are now more convinced than ever that they are right. Now, they've been shown to be wrong, and that makes them feel that they are more right.
It's something we're seeing today. And I think the Seekers. I would say out of all the episodes we've done, this one, and I don't know why, Matt, it's just hit me right in the feels.
No, it is.
Right, it's hit me right in the feels because of my own family situation. What I've gone through with trying to explain people the difference between facts-based insights and faith-based or fantasy-based insights. Yes. But also, the reason it's really hit me in the feels, and I know you're probably not going to expect this, is that the media reported on this. I was thinking about what the media is doing in certain conspiratorial ways now, right? With not sourcing correctly or actually going for the clicks in 1954. Yeah. But Matt, the issue is what you just told me. If they had somebody look into this group, why would they print something in a newspaper from somebody who's certainly, I know you said they might be true believers, but for the fate of the world, it made page 3. But the fact is that the media or somebody thought that was an actual applicable story to write, number one, which could cause panic. Right. It could write those type of things, or it just makes things completely unserious. The other side of this is the fact that the falsehoods, the fantasy reinforce their belief systems. Yeah. And I'm seeing that in QAnon. I'm seeing that in New World Order, globalist conspiracy theories, the Hunter Biden laptop stuff, which, I know a lot about. Yeah. Right. The certain types of teams that are doing those things. So, Matt, the reason it's hit me so hard, your research on the Seekers, is that the Seekers really are, I would say, a microcosm of what we're seeing today and the reinforcement of wrongness being somehow right. And it bothers me on such a deep level as we've done the Mighty Peculiar that I don't know why this episode seems to be affecting me more, even though the Seekers seem like some gentle precursor to the Hale Boppers writing the comic. Right. It's a bothersome episode to me. It should be funny. Yeah. But to me, I'm not getting the humor in it. I'm actually getting sort of horror about the corollaries we're seeing today. Yeah. Well, you know what?
I think the only reason why, that you can kind of find humor in it at times, like that I can, is because this isn't, this wasn't a suicide pact thing, right? Like,
true.
But okay, so you're never going to believe what happens on December 24th,
Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Do you know they go outside again?
The fourth night of singing.
Fourth night in a row. So Laughhead, needing to probably either salvage his reputation or the group's reputation, anything like that, he decides that their belief and how strong it was in the Guardians, the purity of the belief, was enough to save the world. Suddenly, what he predicted just 4 days prior, again, this is now 7 days prior. So because we're on the 24th, but 7 days prior in the Tribune, he did that whole long thing about the tidal waves, the volcanoes, the, flip-flopping of land and sea. Now, on the 24th of December, 1954, that's all been averted because they are the heroes.
My Lord, Matt, you've heard me on TV say that people in these fantasy worlds, they want to be action heroes in their own movies, right? They want to be, you've heard me, Matt, right? Yes. These people are so deluded, right, that they actually believe that they probably saved the world. I would humbly submit 29 of the 30 probably believe that. I would say Laughhead didn't. And Dorothy, was that the name of the individual?
Right, yeah.
Firing with? Yeah. Was she the actual prophet, Matt, or was this a combo? And I'm actually, right. People watch the show know I'm asking real questions of Matt right now. Now we're in it.
So from what I can tell, Laughhead is saying this is all coming through Dorothy, like channeling it into automatic writing. Now, my assumption is based on the fact that Laughhead is 100% the spokesman for this group. I think it's the other way around. I think he's kind of concocted this in his, either Dorothy is just so like spacey that like she doesn't realize she's being manipulated, or it was just straight up like.
So we're looking at a pattern of fever dreams, whether it's coming from Dorothy or Dr. Laughhead. The other thing too, that when you talk about Dorothy as a channeler, in automatic writing. The reason you see me sometimes like, whoa, is I'm thinking about the new MAGA woman prophet line that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Right. And the way that they're coming out and they're channeling what's going to happen in the next presidential election. By the way, Matt, they've been wrong every time. They've actually missed the prophetic hits.
But
right?
don't worry, that doesn't. We just learned being wrong is not a roadblock to belief.
It's not. And I think that's what scares me more about America today than it's had at any other time, because you're talking about 30 people, suburbanites, using a channeler, talking about the guardians coming to swoop them up based on some kind of combination of aliens and God, the supreme being, right? And I definitely want to go into that based on when you have a congressional representative who I know talk about aliens being in the Bible. Right, number one, right? I believe there's some mix there, but this whole thing of prophets or a prophetess, or the fact that there's these channelers that can somehow see the future based on some kind of supreme being, you see that now is actually a tenet of a large portion of the base of the GOP.
Right.
We're talking about seekers. I'm going to right now. I think
it should be the Seeker Caucus. I mean, we're probably not that far from it.
That's, buddy, this is the Seeker Caucus.
Yeah.
We now have the Seeker Caucus that doesn't need to have any type of fact-based things happen. And if it does, what's so brilliant about this, it took them 3 days, 72 hours, but Dorothy and Dr. Laughhead were able to come up with a story to salvage the crazy. And I got to tell you, there's some brilliance in that.
Right.
There's some brilliance in the grift.
Yes,
there's
100%.
some brilliance in that belief. I'm not stunned, but I'm excited. I get excited to hear this.
So that's more or less the end of the Seekers. Now, there's some funny postscripts. So Laughhead had to undergo a psychiatric evaluation because he was a medical doctor at a university in another state, and they're like, yeah, okay, so we got to check you out. And Dorothy actually voluntarily underwent psychiatric treatment the following week, so like after Christmas, to avoid criminal charges because basically with the constant, like all 30 people out in her front yard, plus all the people that came around to watch because they heard about this stuff, there was disturbing the peace. There was a potential inciting a riot charge.
Sure.
And my favorite, and I don't know how this actually stacks up because I don't think this seems unjustified. She would have been charged with contributing to the delinquency of minors, not because of any of the weird like cult stuff that you would think of, but because, and this is so hilariously suburban, because she was known to talk to the neighborhood children about the end of times and the aliens, that the kids couldn't sleep at night. So I don't think that charge would have held up.
Is that the scary story statute that I haven't heard about, Matt? And,
seriously.
Is that because my Lord, I've been telling Bigfoot stories because of the crazy believer.
Yeah, turns out.
By the way,
you could have been charged.
Unbelievable. As you know, that I try to use Bigfoot believers as an avatar.
Yeah.
For how fantasy can rule a life and how actually those fantasies come into conflict.
Yes.
Right, that you have 4 major different types of Bigfoot belief systems that didn't like each other and went into conflict in that fantasy. And I do apply that in a way to domestic terrorism, even though I don't think Bigfoot believers would ever storm the Capitol, my friend. But I also to the way that people can be radicalized, right? And that radicalization or that belief system is usually controlled by a grift or a money source or a money sucker, right? That's able to sort of mine the ignorant, right?
Yeah.
And then, right, because ignorance is a cash crop.
Yes.
And and I think that as we're moving forward to that, as we're looking into that, I'm just amazed again that based on the charges, that this one. Listen, I know it sounds benign, and Matt, maybe I'm being too harsh, and I want to run this by you because I really do respect your opinion on this. I still think there's a dangerous subtext when you have an individual who says she's channeling and she is spreading really a horrific belief system.
Yeah, I mean,
Of
it was
destruction.
mass extinction that they're at the base of what they're saying. So
Yeah, she's talking about a mass extinction event.
yeah,
And then for it to be somehow where she has voluntary seek psychiatric help not to get charged, that's an indicator.
right.
And I think, again, when I look and I'm watching members of Congress talking about aliens being in the Bible, people that I know who aren't necessarily bad people at all. Some
Right.
people I count as friends, but all of these individuals are hanging on something that's been memed. And dear Lord, I can't believe, Matt, we're going back, into from everything we've done to the susceptibility of believers.
Yes. Yes. Well, and okay, so here let's talk about cognitive dissonance as a
Yes.
theory, as a thing, right? Because the kind of fun origin story of cognitive dissonance is the Seekers. The term cognitive dissonance was defined because people studying and developing the theory embedded themselves in the Seekers.
That is amazing. So this is
They heard- so-
Matt, you need to tell me more. That's
Yeah. So okay, a guy named Leon Festinger,
okay.
Festinger.
Festinger. Perfect pronunciation.
He's from University of Minnesota, right?
Right.
And he's developing. At this point, it's he doesn't have a term for it. And his first study, but essentially, it is this idea of like holding these contradictory thoughts in your head at the same time, right?
Right.
So first, before he hears about the Seekers, he does what I think is this study, this experiment kind of blew my mind, and it actually I think might speak to some of your like interest in like the money aspect of this stuff. So okay, his experiment was he got some people and gave them really boring tasks to do for 1 hour. Okay.
Okay.
So just mundane stuff that like it was just soul crushing, numbing tasks. As they leave that, some of the people are given $1, others are given $20.
Okay.
And this is early
54.
50s money. So $20 is buying a house, basically, if my math is correct.
Or at least it's great.
But okay, so they did the same tasks. They leave the room and some $1, some $20. Now, the next thing they're instructed to do is describe the tasks that they just did for an hour to the next group that's supposed to go in.
Okay.
And what they found, so the assumption, I think the working assumption for Festinger, and what I had was the people that got $20 are going to be like animated and like super selling the tasks, right? Because they just made $20 out of it, right? So that's great. Like that's a way to spend an hour.
Right.
Opposite happened. The people that only got $1 constantly oversold how fun or interesting or worthwhile that time was, because what they learned is those people desperately needed to justify wasting time and only getting $1 for it.
It's fast.
Whereas the people that got $20 basically said, yeah, I just did it for the money. It sucked, but hey, I got $20. So the people that got paid less dug in their heels and had to double, triple, quadruple down on like selling what it was, because they don't want to be seen as dupes that just did something dumb for an hour and only got paid $1.
So you're saying they had to validate their dupitude?
Yep, that's exactly what it is, right?
Well, sorry, I just made that up. I know that's just incredibly.
No,
wrong.
I think no. I think that's in clinically an official.
I tell you,
clinical.
validating your dupitude It sounds like I don't even know what that sounds like, a song, or I'm validating my dupitude. And, it's just, oh my God.
What? The Scullys have been absent for a little while, so we may need to bring them back sometime.
It's so dead on for what's going on today. I don't have when you're talking about, validating your dupitude, or what you're doing with as far as rationalizing, these actions that you took that are so now absolutely amazingly ridiculous. I mean, if you think about it, what if you got a Trump tattoo with Rambo's body, right? And you have it as
mention that
on your lower back. My guess is you're rationalizing that for the rest of your life. You're validating your dupitude.
Right. And you know what? You might be really doubling and tripling down on your love for Trump, maybe even in hopes that you're going to get someone else to do something that
ridiculous,
unerasably stupid.
Yeah, unerasably stupid. Also, you're validating your dupitude because you're unerasably stupid. I mean,
we know language here. We know language. So that experiment is basically the first steps to defining cognitive dissonance, because now what Festinger has seen is that people are willing to have very specific feelings about an experience, but express completely contradictory versions of it when they need to, right? So, but where they really pin down on this is, as I said, he got wind of like this weird group in Illinois, the Seekers, and so he had, I think it was 2 people. So really, I guess I should say the Seekers were maybe 28 people,
right?
30, or maybe it was 32 and there was 30 true believers. I'm not sure on that, but he got 2 of his researchers embedded in there. And so, and the bulk of the Seekers meetings, this was also not like a long-term group. I mean, they basically really officially formed in November of 1954, and they were done by the end of December of 1954, right? So these people got firsthand all of the contortions and the, mental gymnastics that, the people were having to do even before the 21st and then the subsequent days, but then especially afterwards. They got all of it. And basically, you kind of said, you bet there was like maybe one person that like had the regrets, but other people, that's more or less what they found. Is like one person was essentially like, well, that was a bunch of crap. Like, I can't believe I fell for it. And the rest of them were either all in on the whole "we saved the world" narrative, or it's just some variation of that, right? And then in a most cleverly titled book, A Theory of Cognitive Dissonance, Festinger talks about this, but then the whole Seekers thing, but then also the people, Festinger and the people that he had embedded there, wrote a book called When Prophecy Fails, which is
excellent.
One of the kind of tentpole books in psychology. And that's all about the Seekers. And
I'm going to read these books. I think I actually would exhort the audience to actually look for these books. Yeah. Festinger, I think, needs to be more of a hero than he's made out today. Number one. Yeah. That's fantastic. Number two, when prophecy fails, I think we're dealing with that every day. There's so much to what you said there. My head is actually exploding with all. Hey,
when's the storm? Did the storm already happen? Is it still coming? I can't remember, but it doesn't matter because
you're already where I was going. They keep talking about it. And, so first of all, I think we need to bring the word dupe back into the lexicon of America, right? Yeah. These are critical dupes who have to validate their dupitude. But I think the other thing, too, that we need to bring back is cognitive dissonance in a way that we talk about it, how Festinger defined it, and how he actually researched it. The other thing, too, and I know this is going to blow your mind a little bit, but I was talking the other day, I had a serious question in a panel about how do we inoculate people against fantasy? Is there a facts-based vaccination? I said, absolutely not. I said, this whole war is house to house. And they said, well, how do we win? I said, you've got to turn a very small percentage of people. If you're talking in the seams, I think we're only going to be able to turn 3 to 5% of the people to a more sort of realistic way of looking at the world based on fact-based insights. That's why when I said maybe one of them, I was just doing percentages.
Right.
Quick percentages based on what I've seen with individuals when you bring up something that's really fact-based. Matt, you're talking about a book written, I would say Festinger, released this in 55 or 6?
Yeah, I think When Prophecy Fails came out around 57, so a couple years afterwards, because they had finalized. Basically, the term cognitive dissonance is like coined and defined in 1957. So like all of the studies leading up to it, but we get as a term for the first time in 1957 is cognitive dissonance.
It's amazing.
Just for the sake of it, really quick, the most bare bones, because I think everyone understands what we mean, but what the basic definition is, it's the state of discomfort felt when two or more modes of thought contradict each other. So basically, it is, it is the Osama bin Laden wasn't killed by SEAL Team 6, and he's still alive, or no, he was killed by, much longer ago, right? And it's like the same person can advocate that stuff. And actually, just to call out a past topic really quick, and as you'll see, and the audience will have already seen, I took part in an interview on, I think it was Truck Nut Radio. We opened our episode with it, and we were having a spirited discussion about COVID-19 being both a very dangerous bioweapon that was intentionally unleashed to like wreak havoc. Then it was also, but like, don't worry, it's like not worse than the common cold.
You don't need a mask.
Right. So guess what I found? Because I was like, man, that's hilarious that like Truck Nut Radio host Earl advocated that. Turns out Marjorie Taylor Greene also literally said those things in 2 different interviews. So she has said it was a bioweapon attack in one interview, and then in a different interview, not too far apart, it was not dangerous.
I like to use like a technical definition when you're talking about this. And I think it's nuttier than a shithouse rat. And I think that might also be another definition.
I think Festinger also coined that phrase. That was
he did that too. Cognitive dissonance. Damn, yeah. He also did nuttier than a shithouse rat in 1957. But when you're talking about
talented man.
Well, what I really like, Matt, is that as you know, I've seen the cognitive dissonance of Marjorie Taylor Greene during the whole January 6th investigation, and we have talked about her with the amazing research from 2016 to today, when you see her evolution of duped, right? Yes. Of dupitude.
Yeah.
I think also the fact that you just brought up cognitive dissonance based on the fact that COVID wasn't that big of a deal, but it's also a bioweapon that was actually made in a lab and then released to the deep state or the globalists.
Yep.
She really is, again, the embodiment of almost the conspiracy theory mindset, but she's also seeker adjacent. And I was going to say that it seems like today, we talk about the 30 people that were the seekers, more or less, Matt.
Yeah.
And if I may put words into your mouth, or where you're going with some of this research too, is that we're seeing the millions of people that are seeker adjacent today.
100%. Yes.
Because Festinger used that for that cognitive dissonance theory, which isn't a theory, it's really true.
Right.
And the fact is they have to validate their beliefs because there is conflict mentally with them because it just doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, and you know what? It's funny because one of the things that was talked about is that, so cognitive dissonance isn't self-delusion, but it leads to it, right? So you can be self-deluded on many things, but not necessarily be, experiencing cognitive dissonance. But in the event that like your cognitive dissonance just leads to complete self-delusion, the thought is that like your brain would rather win an argument than actually understand the real issue. And that's where cognitive dissonance gets reinforced, because it's not about like it's not really about was it a lab leak or was it something, you know, naturally occurring that just got spread. It's whatever you need it to be in the moment to best your debate opponent, right?
Well,
that's it.
I think, may I come up with a conspiracy theory that links the cognitive dissonance of the Chinese labs just off of the top of my head? Well, obviously, here's what I would do if I'm a conspiracy theorist, if I may. Well, absolutely was a bioweapon. But the Chinese, even though Bill Gates actually funded the lab, the bioweapon might not have been as dangerous as they thought it was. The deep state and the globalists can make mistakes too. And I think what happened was that they might have released this bioweapon. What they didn't understand, though, is that, like RFK Jr. said, it was actually more dedicated towards the Jewish population and also other populations. It really wasn't going to hit the white population quite as hard as we thought it was. So the fact is that they tried to take an amalgam of that COVID sort of lab-created disease, and they tried to ship it to America because it was actually just a test, Matt. It was just a test to actually see if COVID could work in this other population. What it did, it had some effect, but for the most effect, it was harmless. So yes, it can be two things. You don't understand, Matt.
Yeah, no, you're convincing me here. Like,
right? Because the deep state and the globalists, actually with Bill Gates and the Rothschilds and George Soros funding the COVID labs, and the fact that Dr. Fauci was actually leading the Chinese gain of function on all of these things, what they didn't realize is that even though they already had an ethnically specific virus, they still needed to test it with the Americans based on the fact that they wanted to have a global virus that actually introduced socialism and communism into the world effect that we have today.
I mean,
what do you guys think? I mean,
you're like 1,000% right. I mean, and like, Doug, what do you think?
Doug, I mean, does that make sense to you?
That was really upsetting. That was well done. That was exactly, that was exactly the thought process I would see on the internet.
Yeah.
Well, it is the thought process, and I guess I'm summing it up this way because, Matt, I know that we've had some brilliant episodes. I think this one, and I know it doesn't have that buzzy one-person crazy that we're sort of pushing and then actually going out from there. We actually went the other way, right? Cognitive dissonance is something we're fighting every day.
Yes.
But
it's what empowers people like RFK Jr. and Marjorie Taylor Greene, the ones where we talked about specific people. Like, cognitive dissonance is their superpower now. Like, that's it.
Remember when I said inconsistency was a feature, not a bug, when it came to conspiracy theories, and you want to hit people in the amygdala, and then they don't remember what happened the week before.
Right.
And the one person or so who said with the Seekers, with Dr. Laughhead, right, that, man, I just got duped, but the other 28 are like, I have to validate my dupitude. Right. Means that I have to live in cognitive dissonance or I can't handle it.
Right.
So that means I have to delude myself. We are seeing that on such a mass level today that I almost want to call people seeker adjacent.
Yeah.
Right. Just like Q adjacent, things like that. Now, because here's my thing. There might have been 30 seekers, but it was, guess what? That media hit allows them to meme that, just like 1958 Bigfoot, just like 1947, right? When you're talking about Roswell specifically, just like the self-affirming UFO research projects that were conducted by the government.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So it has to be something, right? So it's amazing to me that we talk about the Seekers as more of a benign group that might be a precursor to Heaven's Gate, or definitely has some of the same characteristics, and it has some of the same characteristics of the Voyagers and the Guardians, with the mystical beings and the 12-strand DNA beings that are trying to attack us, reptilian humanoids, the Dracos, whatever, right? So all of this
I'm sorry, the way you're just rattling them off is amazing. Yeah. And also, like, the three of us haven't slept in like days, so like, it's hilarious.
It's days, right?
It's just making me punch drunk.
I think, but the thing is, the command is so good because
Matt, I almost believe that you use the Seekers. You've used this episode, and we've used this episode as a bridge to what we're going to next. It's almost like the Seekers is like the example, the exemplar of what we started talking about, right? From the
They're
gasser,
patient
from the
zero, in my opinion. That's kind of what this episode, it was a story I was kind of familiar with, again, being from Illinois, like
right.
kind of, but you do kind of realize, because it gives us cognitive dissonance, but also like just what their particular beliefs were, they do feel like patient zero for what came after and what we're still experiencing. So
Festinger is a hero.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, I don't know if it's an accident or if it's on purpose. It's better to be lucky than good, but it's better to be lucky and good.
Mm.
And I do feel like this episode is really a link. It really is the bridge to where we're going to next. And what we're trying to fight is we're fighting the seeker mentality. And we're fighting the fact that in some respects, the media with clicks today, and even with clicks in 1954, guys, right?
Yeah.
Because they wanted press, they want to sell ads. You have them amplifying something so absolutely crazy and insane that if the press is reporting on it, doesn't have truth to it. And people that are susceptible, I think, will go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm amazed by this, because as soon as you started talking and putting all the things in place, Matt, everything that I've been fighting since I was on the floor of Congress, the only one to talk against QAnon, you brought that with the seeker research and looking at how they do things. So here's the thing. There might have been 30 seekers, and I want to hear, Doug, you, because I know we don't want to go for 5 hours, because it might be the most fascinating topic. Might have been 30
no,
seekers.
this is us at our best if we're going to be all self-aware. This is us at our best, and not us doing like, culture war minstrel business. Like, this is us doing what we do.
Check. You're exactly correct. And and I think as I'm going through this is that it was more than 30 guys, because what happens when the press amplifies that is you start the seeker adjacent virus, right? And the fact that dupes can actually live in that cognitive dissonant world.
Because a seeker YouTube channel right now would be
huge.
Hot. Yeah.
Oh, and you got to think about this.
And they would sell so many vitamins.
Oh, yes.
Like a lot of vitamins they'd be selling.
Well, I think that's an EMF type of protection channel.
Oh, yeah, that's true too.
Again, if we go back to our EMF episode, and I'm not kidding, Doug.
I
know.
They blend the spiritual kind of paranormal side with the UFOs, which still happens sometimes, but that was definitely that was a culture change that was happening, moving from the spiritual to the science fiction, essentially.
And this is where we get this sort of Christianity sci-fi merge.
Right, the Christianity sci-fi merge, and I don't want to steal all of our thunder, but it is a cosmic Jesus type of overlay, and
that's madness,
right? And I think. And when I was listening, when you hear congressional representatives, as I mentioned earlier, talking about UFOs being mentioned in the Bible, you get to a point that even people that I've had lunch with, that I've laughed with, I also think that it sounds benign, but it's inherently dangerous if you have either the media or somebody in a position of authority saying things that are so wackadoo, so absolutely
right.
What word am I looking for, guys? It's not even. It's not even crazy. It's almost like belief systems gone wild. I mean, it's like a wet T-shirt contest of crazy, and I can't, and I don't know how to.
Gonna find out if they're gray or green that way.
well.
I just took all of the highfalutin stuff and just
went
it like a flying saucer.
The best of this show, right there, Matt. That's the best of this show. Is that
right there? Yeah,
right there is because we're taking this massively serious topic. We sort of have to minimize these individuals a little bit.
Yeah.
Do we have to validate them?
No.
Do I have to say it's okay?
Right.
Because it seems benign, but you're talking about cosmic Jesus, UFOs in the Bible, and the fact that we're wasting government resources on UAP hearings while we have a $32 trillion debt, or why we have people being, hurt because of how they identify.
Right.
Or we have the abortion wars. We have all this stuff. We have Ukraine and Russia. We have China. Right. We have amazing amounts of real issues.
Okay.
And it's not benign.
No, Okay, but we have the cosmic elephant in the room, that being Denver Riggleman. That's I have to ask you some question. Isn't it not? Was this not the direction your former party was heading since our lifetime? Really, their co-opting of Christianity, their business relationship with certain aspects, and I'm not talking about Christianity as the religion itself. I'm talking about the racket of Christianity. This is your 700 clubs, your Falwell, all that business, right?
Yeah.
Like, wasn't this the direction it was going, and the internet just like sort of exasperated it?
I think before social media, I think the crazier voices, whether it was right or left, and right now, let's talk about the right because they are in a hold my beer moment, as you guys know I have said.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised that way, Doug. I was raised that the Constitution was a divine document. I was raised that I was a soldier of Christ, that we were always engaged in spiritual warfare, and that the United States had to protect those Christian principles. And I think you're right. I think Reagan had to sort of make some of those things, and I was a Reagan fan, as you guys know. I mean, I won't make any bones about it. But now, looking back in hindsight, when you embrace fantasy as part of your policy, it has to go down that route, even if it seems benign. Doug, the point is well made. And, for me, thinking I was arrogant enough to think I was a new Republican or that I was going to bring freedom of thought and marriage equality. And I know this sounds marijuana legalization, and I was going to bring the fact that the Republican Party shouldn't just be small enough to fit in your bedroom. I was absolutely, and I hate to say this at 53 years old, but when I went in there thinking I could make a difference, I was naive because I didn't realize how big the current was. And either I swim in that current or I'm ejected from it. And I think that's why that I've pushed off being a Republican. As you guys know, I mean, the stupid frickin' cliche is I didn't leave the party left me. No, I left. There was no way for me to be able to rationalize that belief system anymore. I might be fiscally conservative, but I'm so socially out of bounds now with what the GOP is. I can't go back there. There's always been a fantasy element or a supernatural element to policy and belief systems at some point that seem to have come out of the GOP. And it pains me because I'm a big freedom of religion guy. You guys know how I was raised. But are we to a point of somebody who believes they're getting talked to directly by God? Why is it such a big stretch to believe you're getting talked to directly by aliens?
I mean, I can make that leap easy because it's just, it's.
And does it destroy
6 of one, half a dozen of another?
Well, and Doug, the question, and does it destroy any chance for me to serve again if I'm like, listen, we can't have policy based on religion specifically, right? If I were to say that, and I do want to serve, and I know that I have to, by the way, if you run, you have to compromise some of your principles. There's no way around it. You have to be able to be almost malleable, which I have a very tough time doing, and I did, as you guys know. But if I am to serve again, how do I do that? How do I, because if I let just crazy go, I'm like, I'm not going to participate anymore because I'm not going to compromise my principles at all, then I'm allowing the nutcases, right, to really start. I'm allowing the crazies to run the asylum. So I'm in this awful, sometimes lose sleep nights just based on your dang question, Doug.
Well,
your fault.
All right. Well, that's my question of the week.
Yeah,
I more than appreciate your honest answer. Thank you for that.
Of course.
And
that's what we do here.
And here, I'll just throw out something kind of inane because that's what I do here. So I was just looking. I believe Dorothy's house is still standing. So Denver, when you come to Illinois, you and I have to go to Oak Park and stand on that front lawn and take a selfie, waiting for maybe the Guardians will show up.
Maybe they will.
Maybe finally. Maybe their math was just wrong. Laughhead was not great with numbers. So maybe you and I get to go to Planet Clarion.
Maybe we do, and I'm ready. But I want to let you guys know, I think the mighty peculiar, I think we're guardians. I think we're guardians of facts. And I think we're guardians of data.
And
I think, this show, again, I think is an incredible bridge to where we're going after this, and almost a summation of the susceptible individuals and the crazy we've actually dove into in the last, 8 episodes.
Yeah.
That being said, click like and subscribe, and you can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on TikTok. You can follow us.
Yeah,
and join us next week on.
And never validate your dupitude.
No. But we do like true believers in this show.
All right, Doug, take us out. Sorry.
The T-shirt printer is going to have a ball with us
Yeah.
on the Mighty Peculiar.
Odd, strange, odd, strange.